When you're writing nonfiction or writing about yourself, the truth becomes a big word that is out there. And how do you know it's the truth? And should you tell the truth? And what happens if something you tell is not truthful? So these are just massive questions all authors who write have. But the call of writing and the call of sharing your story is to put those aside and to write anyway. And that's advice I always give writers. Don't worry yet about those things. First, write the book. But I do want to cover some essential points about why the truth is important and what the truth is and when the truth isn't important. So the first thing to understand is, quite honestly, most books are your truth. There is no such thing, and many people will tell you, and it's out there that the truth is a very variable and flexible thing. What you're committing in a book is your truth. So to know that and to own it. And I often encourage you to write a disclaimer up front that just says that this is my memory of the book. Your memory may be different. I intended to hurt nobody in the writing of this book. And maybe I've remembered things wrong. So there's one easy way of just presenting the truth as something that is malleable in memory. The second thing is to understand that all memoir, all nonfiction, are truth-based writing, fact-based writing. There is a basic assumption when you buy a book that is in that nonfiction category, that it is written in with facts behind it. So when the facts are your memory, of course, this becomes a little bit more slippery slopes. And I think the best we can do is to sometimes verify and check. So I always encourage writers, when they've written a specific scene, to go to somebody who was there alive at the time and say, do you remember it like this? How may you remember it? And I don't often always say that you should change what you've said, but you can soften it by saying, Aunt Mavis remembers it differently. She tells me that night my arm wasn't broken and I wasn't rushed to emergency. So we can start to bring through your story other people's versions of the truth. You can even allow them to speak in their own words and say, but Stella, that's not how it happened, etc. So that in dialoguing, that you can also start to soften and bring in what other people may consider the truth. And that's a very powerful thing to do in a book and in a memoir. So we verify and we check and we solicit opinions and we see if our memory holds. And that's in the second version of your book. In the first version, the first draft, you're just getting your story down. But when we start to build out the book and make it a little bit more readable, we start to bring in, you can look at diaries, you can go and find out what other people wrote about the time, just to make the book more interesting as well. So it's not just your vision, your vision. And then I also want to just mention that, you can't remember everything. So people say, Sarah, how do I recreate a scene that happened when I was 6 years old or 8 years old or 12 years old? And you don't remember. You don't remember exactly what was said. But because you're writing a book, we need engaging dialogue in a book. We need characters. So you have to imagine. So that fight your parents may have had that you overheard that caused you to run out in the road and run away from home and whatever happened, you don't remember verbatim what happened in that fight, but you've got to sit with the integrity of the present day and go, I know my parents, they kind of spoke like this. So maybe what happened in the fight was that. So you start to recreate scenes. This is not telling an untruth. This is making the truth come alive. And I think what's very important is that it continues with the integrity of what you remember. So we don't maybe remember what the doctor said in that waiting room as he gave us the diagnosis that changed our life. We don't remember the exact words. So we can reimagine it and write it in an active, exciting, and vibrant way so that we are not just telling people what happened, we're showing them. We show, it's the show, don't tell. It's, it's action over exposition. And that's where the truth is bent. But ultimately, the truth is not bent. We are just creating a way to make the book engaging, the story engaging, and with the assumption that what you're telling does not alter the absolute essential belief that you have of how this story unfolded.